Welcome to Wellness Unscripted, the podcast where nothing is curated, nothing is off limits, and everything is connected. We're here to pull back the curtain on the wellness world and talk about the things women whisper about, worry about, and walk through alone. So grab your tea, your cozy socks, and your fully expressed self, and let's begin. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are diving into why hormones are kind of the talk of the town right now, and also why they're really not the villains that we make them all out to be. So, before we really start diving in, I have a blanket question. Whoever would like to answer it first. Why do you think hormones are suddenly everywhere in the conversation? Love how you guys go. Again, if you are first time listening to us, if you are not watching us on YouTube, you should be watching us on YouTube because they literally both did the same exact movement.
Did we?
Yeah.
I kind of looked down. I was like, I think we just did the same thing at the same time.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's fine. That's why we're here.
It is why we're here. Well, we gel very well together. I'm gonna hop in, Jess, and say on it, like my gut response to that is it's just like it's the thing right now. Like I don't even know that there's a reason behind it, but it's the thing that the the TikToks and the influencers and it's the easiest sort of go-to culprit when we think about women's health, particularly because um this concept of perimenopause and menopause has become such a big, widespread topic. I think immediately we just all go to hormones when we think about that. It's very rare, like, because that's all we know. That's what's being given, even in the doctors and the sort of doctor influencers that are bringing perimenopause and menopause into the conversation socially. I do believe they're like she's doing the person I'm thinking of, that is one of the bigger ones. What is her name? Mary something.
Very plain hair.
Yeah. I think
Mary.
she's doing really amazing stuff, but I think what happens when we use this influencing technique is that the algorithms pull on the easiest thread, and hormones have become the simplest, most easiest thread in the conversation.
Alexis,
Alexis,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, I it's a really good question. And I guess I'll do the same thing. I'll go with like my gut and kind of like the first thing that came up. Um, so I think there's also an influence of diet culture like trickling over
True.
because prior
Uh-huh.
prior to
Great.
this new resurge of hormones, like in terms of women and and that classification hormones, we also just came out of the huge like GMO and hormone-free chicken. And so like there was this whole trend of like diet culture right before that was talking about like that was associating hormones with bad health. And I think somewhere along
Mhm.
there was just this like natural progression that turned into, you know, all things hormone. So the other thing that I was also thinking is that maybe there's some type of like generational type trigger that like every 10 years or so when a certain generation gets into that hormonal stage that we start talking about it kind of again. Okay, they're laughing. I'm not sure why. Did I miss the joke? I don't know what happened.
No.
No, your audio freaked out.
Yeah. We were trying to let your audio catch up, but Jess responded because it really sounded like all of a sudden you went like techno for a minute and then
Really?
came back.
That's so
Yeah.
weird.
We may have to do a little editing, or maybe we'll just leave it in there, and y'all can see that we truly are, like, unscripted here,
Well,
and,
a little
it
bit of
is what it is.
my '80s robot came out because, like,
Mhm.
I think I'm the only Gen Xer here between the 3 of us. Or somebody might be, like, right on the cusp or something, but I'm just a solid Gen Xer. Um, so, yeah, maybe a little bit of, like, my Dome Arigato, Mr. Roboto just came out, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. And if you know where that's from, then you can be my friend.
Uh-huh. Mhm. Yeah, I'm right on the cusp, Alexis, so
You're on the
I was
cusp?
born in
Okay.
'83. Yeah. Yeah, I do think there probably is a generational piece. You know, it was coming up when you started talking about diet culture. I think the other thing, and I'm actually curious how Jess responds to this, because I don't know that we've ever talked about this point in particular, but I also feel sometimes like the hormone conversation is a little bit of, how do I how do I take a pill and make this go away? And that it's become the fast fix. And that's the other reason why it's become the thing that we're all talking about, because it's an easy thing for doctors to do or to give. It's like an easy, like, I don't have to change anything on my side if I believe that suddenly taking hormones is going to make all of these like symptoms go away. So that I think is probably another reason.
Yeah, and I asked the question purposely to see how you two respond first, because of course I have an opinion. This is my world.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, we've got blowers coming. So my side of it is, yeah, it's the easy thing to pinpoint. We like to say this is happening, so this is the reason, and now
Hmm.
let's fix that reason, rather than we tend to stay surface level. And as complicated as hormones can't be, they are surface level for what is happening in our body.
Hmm.
And hormones are really, they're signals and they're messengers and they're flags that are being raised. And sometimes it's a yellow flag, and sometimes it's a red flag, and sometimes it's a white flag. And it is a signal for us to listen to say something deeper is happening. What is the deeper thing happening?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and again, we say this a lot on this podcast, we are going to stick very, very concentrated to the US in this conversation, because a lot of the world does not work this way, is that let's segregate women's health. Let's break this all up into a million different specializations so everybody has a say and no one talks to each other and we don't get to the root cause of things. And the deeper side of that on top of it is uh, I think it's a multitude of quite a few things that have culminated together. One is cultural shifts. Two is stress adaptation. I'll dive into each of these. Three is our mental load. And four is awareness. And when we dive into each of those, they all still kind of all have that same root cause. So let's kind of dive into each of these. When you guys hear cultural shifts and awareness, I'm going to put those two together. What comes up for you?
I think the biggest thing is that our culture is shifting to make the general masses increasingly unaware,
Mm,
Agreed. Massive.
mm,
which is really unfortunate. And it puts a lot of onus on practitioners with integrity, and and maybe it doesn't. Maybe I take that back. I think maybe there's a perceived increased onus and responsibility, like, on the consumer, because they don't know exactly where to find the practitioners with integrity, which we've talked about that in previous episodes. I think, like, that's the unfortunate, like, cultural shift.
mm. I don't think I've ever considered it from that perspective. The thing that came, like, the first thing that I like when I hear cultural shift, and awareness, um, I think one of the cultural shifts is that we went from never talking about this thing to now everyone is talking about this thing. And so at first pass, that feels like awareness. But what like now that you've said that, Alexis, I'm going, oh, but it's also drowning out because we have this I think about this when I think about, my teenager in particular, and teens today because I have an 18-year-old, so I have conversations with teenagers in a way that I've never, like, in my day-to-day life as a 43-year-old woman would not normally be talking to an 18-year-old, right? And they like to diagnose themselves because of a TikTok video, right? They like to diagnose themselves from very small, very nuanced pieces of information. And so, what looks and feels like awareness and access to information actually probably is drowning out the reality and the full scope and the breadth of the information that we need to be able to make good decisions about our health. Whatever, it doesn't even this is not even, I think, specific to women's health, I think this is across the board.
Mhm.
This is happening a ton in mental health, a ton in mental health, but this crossover to physical health and even, um, there's all this information, but we don't really know what's real.
I really love the perspectives of the cultural shift because my perspective is quite different.
Mm,
And we talked about like it's kind of a culmination of the two of yours with some additions to it is culturally this time of life or even just a menstrual cycle, for instance, is such a coveted thing. When if you think about hundreds of years ago, when a woman is bleeding, she is in the most connection to whatever, let's just say,
yes.
source is,
Yeah.
um, whatever you believe that that
Mhm.
word. And that is the time where the most wisdom comes through. That's the time when the most awareness and perspective of where things should be going come through. Like, for instance, there would be, it's called a red tent, and all of the women would be bleeding together in the tent. And if, men want to go to war, they ask the women and they go and they bleed on it. And then the answer comes to
Um,
that. And the women communicate with each other. What did you get? What did you get? What did you get? And then they decipher that as a community together.
mhm.
And now it's not. Like, it's stigmatized, it's
Yes.
shamed, it's all of the things that that, let's just say, wisdom suppressed
Mm,
is that shift is slowly actually coming back towards the red tent if you're on that if that
yeah.
you're on the front of that movement. And it's that there's always ebb and flow in everything in the world. Historically, anything you can find the ebb and flow to it. And I think we're in that ebb and flow now.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't even as soon as you said it, I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I hadn't gone quite that far with the cultural shift, but that's a huge one when we think about, cycles and, what starts very early for our girls and what we're taught and not about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then let's put the other two together, stress adaptation and mental loads that we have these days because of technology, because of women in the workplace and doing amazing things in the workplace, because of the um we're getting into, kind of touchy territory, which welcome to our podcast. We're always in touchy territory.
Yeah.
Um of how who's doing what and how much load is a woman taking mentally. And a lot of times we don't think about stress being stress and we adapt to it. And the way I like to say this is if what you are experiencing now, you experienced 5, 10 years ago, you would say from a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being extreme, you would say you're probably a 9. And then, but we are creatures of adaptation. We are going to slowly adapt to something so we can tolerate it, so we control it, so we can survive, so we can live.
Yeah.
And that 9 becomes a 6. And then you start adapting to that 6, and that 6 becomes a 4. And you start adapting to that 4, and that 4 becomes a 2. And when I say, "How are you? How is your stress levels?" You say, "Oh, I'm not stressed, I'm fine." And then I ask you actual questions regarding stress, and you're like, "Actually, you read at a 10. So let's talk about that." What comes up when you guys hear that?
Um, I think for me, it's just I I feel like I say something like this in every episode, is that, like, I think very spectrum in a very spectrum-focused perspective, so stress is a spectrum for me as well.
Huh?
And so oftentimes when I'm having conversations with clients or just in general, I often find myself saying that stress is a spectrum. And it's where you sit in that range of stress. Like when I explain, when I have conversations about stress with people and people ask me, or we get to a point of like what stress is, I tell people that stress is any stimulus, anything from the outside world that makes your body work more than resting. So like I'm sleep and there's even a minimal amount, of that low end of the spectrum there. But, like, as soon as I wake up, the fact that you recruit more like, muscle energy needs a little bit more recruitment so that you sit up straight. That's stress. Your body is requiring more effort in order to produce an action. That's technically technical definition of stress, and that's why I say it's on a spectrum, because there's nothing wrong with increasing effort in the body to sit up so you can get out of bed. But then referring to what Jessica's saying, you know, decision making, dealing with emotions, um, actual energy recruitment for muscular performance. If you're doing it at high intensity or a prolonged amount of time, that's pushing you to the higher end, that other end of the spectrum of stress, which can become and start to stir up dysfunction. So, like, that's mostly what comes up for me, is that sometimes we always perceive stress as like, it's like you kind of like a different way of what you were saying, Jessica. Our society doesn't think about stress until it's at that high end of the spectrum. And then we're all wigging
Yes.
out and trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing about it, where it's an entire spectrum. And like maybe looking at it more at the lower end may be something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber, what comes up for you?
Um, I have so many things. I feel like we could probably do an entire episode on the conversation
Girl,
around stress.
we've said like three or
Um,
four things, and I'm like, that needs to be a whole episode. I, f-
Noted.
I feel you.
um, I think I want to start with the first time I heard you explain that explanation of stress changed my entire thought process about how I look at how I'm functioning, how I feel, um like what's like it was like a weird light bulb unmasking moment that I didn't even know existed because no one had ever said that to me in that way. And as soon as you said it, it was like everything just clicked and I was like, "Oh, yeah." Well, I probably said something else, but I'm gonna be family friendly. There was probably a four-letter word that came out of my mouth when that happened, um, because that's a thing, and it's a thing that happens to all of us. Now, from that point, I wanna tie in that I totally agree with what Alexis is saying because we have also made stress the bad guy. And the truth is we do need a certain amount of stress. We do need, um, some discomfort, if you will, in order to be willing to, um, make a change in our life. And our brains do not like discomfort or the energetic output that it takes to make change. Um, so and I believe that I feel that's why the stress adaptation starts to happen. because our brain's actually trying to make it okay for us to keep doing what we're doing, which makes it incredibly hard to want to make a change if we've now sort of, um, on a cognitive level, made that number manageable. Okay. Um, and so that's why it's incredibly hard for us to make the change because we don't realize the amount of dysfunction that we're actually in and the amount of nervous system fight, flight, fawn, freeze, like the nervous system response, that's the word I'm looking for, that we're actually in consistently, which is also kind of causing that, and it's underlining that dysfunction. And even using the word dysfunction, I think is a bit of a misnomer because the truth is our bodies are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. We
Yeah.
just haven't been taught. No, we just haven't been taught how to read it, how to understand what's happening, how to you said the hormones are, what word did you use?
Signal.
A signal. We're not taught to read the signal. We're taught to, particularly as women, but I think this is, again, this is a cultural across all genders. We're taught to like keep going, push past it, make it all work. We're also not taught to rest. We're not taught to listen to the signal in any way. And all of that increases that mental load.
Yeah, very much so. And I think something you said a really good thing right there, that I wanna tap into for this next point is we are almost praised for pushing through signals.
Mhm. Yes.
And, I wanna talk a little bit about signals and what signals mean what as a very blanket statement. There are always going to be exceptions to any of the things that I'm saying here, because health is on a spectrum as well. Health is not one singular thing. But these are from the, I don't know, probably thousands of women I've worked with at this point. Some of the blanket, easy signals that we can discuss. And I'm going to start kind of from the simple aspect all the way into a little bit more of a complex aspect, but not talk about it in a complex way. Is something as simple as a headache.
Mm,
We push through headaches all the time,
mhm.
and headaches could be a signal that we're dehydrated. Headaches could be a signal that we are underslept. Headaches could be a signal that we are underfed. Headaches could be a signal that we are really tense and we are not getting enough relaxation in our body. There's a lot of things that a headache could mean. But what do we typically do when we have a headache?
I go take something. Yeah.
We, ta- we take a painkiller of some
Yep.
sort
Mhm.
to suppress the headache so we can push through. We don't say, why is this headache happening?
Yep.
And that's the simplest signal we can talk about, and that is all still hormonal conversations happening in our body.
Mm.
Hormones are just transmitters. They are just messengers in our body that are transmitting things to our brain, can say signals, warning flag, or what is that thing on the engine light?
Check engine
Oh,
light?
yeah, like a check engine light, like a warning. Yeah.
Basically, check engine, something's
Mhm.
going on. And instead of us saying, oh, something's going on, we say, oh, it's okay. We can still drive on it.
It still works.
It
The
still
car
works.
still runs.
And let's move into the next signal is, which is cortisol and stress. And so, again, cortisol is not necessarily a bad thing. We need cortisol to wake up in the morning. We need cortisol to run from a tiger. Not like anyone's really running from tigers these days, but run
Metaphorically
from
speaking.
exactly. We need cortisol to be able to lift weights and to strengthen our body. Cortisol is not a bad thing. However, when we operate at a high level cortisol release all the time, it becomes a bad thing. And it puts our body into what I call survival mode. And again, we have this realm of protection, and our bodies, as incredible and magnificent as they still operate in kind of an ancient way. And when we are under high stress, that means our body is under attack in some sort of way, is how our body takes that. And I use the metaphor running from a tiger for a reason because our body is still in the adaptation as if we are running from a tiger when our stress gets really high. And so this is something that I hear from an immense amount of women. And when I say it this way, it tends to have some aha moments. So if you're listening, dial in real quick. Is when our stress gets really high, our body goes into protection mode. And the easiest way for our body to protect itself, because the main things it is worried about is surviving. And where we are most susceptible to dying is our midsection. Our vital organs are all right here. If a tiger comes up, fights us in our midsection and punctures one of those vital organs, very likely we are going to die in a horrific kind of way. And so, what it does when we are in this constant high stress state, and even if we don't perceive the stress to be high, our body still feels that high stress. And it says, I need to protect myself. And it starts to build body fat. And we always build body fat in that midsection because it's protecting our vital organs. And the thing I hear from so many women is, I've got a tummy pooch now. I've got a muffin top now. I've got belly fat now. And that is one of the key signals that you have been overriding your body for too long. You might be underfed for a really long time. You might be overstressed for a really long time. You might be dismissing your body for a really long time. And then that has a cascade effect into our estrogen and into our progesterone and into all of the hot topic, what we call sex hormones, but truly are not sex hormones. We have an estrogen receptor on almost every part of our body from our head to our toes. And when our cortisol increases, for our cortisol to increase, it has to pull from something else. Our body doesn't just magically make things, it has to pull from something to increase something else. And first, it's going to pull from our melatonin, which is why we start to have rough time sleeping. Maybe we can't go to sleep as well. Maybe we wake up in the middle of the night. And then it's going to pull from our progesterone because these are all cascading hormones that make each other. And I'm saying that very simply. It's a lot more complex than this, but for simple purposes. Once it pulls all the melatonin it can pull, it pulls our progesterone, which is our mood stabilizer. So we start having mood swings, we start having cry attacks and rage attacks, and we're getting irritable and we're snipping at people and we're like, I don't even know why I'm snipping at you. Like nothing happened. And then when it pulls all the progesterone it can pull, it's going to pull our estradiol. And that's when we start getting hot flashes and brain fog and even more belly fat because estrogen is, there's a form of estrogen that is in body fat that if we don't have enough estrogen in our system, our body is going to increase it by getting more body fat because it stores estrogen in our body fat. And so that is the third. You get more body fat increase because our body is saying, I don't have enough estrogen because your cortisol is so high. And it's just this cascade of effect that happens. And all of those are signals.
Mm, wow. Just even like my brain might be a little bit blown just hearing you explain that. Cause yeah, it makes sense. Like what's coming through for me as I'm going, there's so many times when I think even like the practitioners that I know that I have like gone and researched and found don't ask questions about things like that when even when I'm showing talking about symptoms. Or I, have lost 75 pounds. So when you think about hormonally what was stored in those fat cells, that's a whole other thing that no one's talking about when we think tying this into, not that we're having a diet culture conversation, but it is all connected to that. And then when we even think about the fact that our bodies can be under stress in ways we're not even aware when we think about being underfed, when we think about, like, particularly how we're fueling our body is a big way that we create stress, like, on a systemic level that we're not even aware of.
Yes.
Again, my 18-year-old was just telling me this morning. He goes, "I'm finally realizing something I think you've known all along, that, like, I am both, I have been chronically dehydrated and, not feeding myself because I'm only eating, like, once a day." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "It's incredibly energetically draining on your body." And I looked at him and said, "I'm not talking woo-woo energy. I'm talking, like, actual physical energy if you're only eating once a day. And then if you have anything else going on stress-wise, if you have any other, um, if you have any other" Yay! Okay, please go watch the YouTube video. Uh, Sorry for the disruption, but for anyone who's not watching the YouTube video while you're listening to this, Jess's camera has been, blurry for, like, at least 10 minutes.
Jess's camera is stressed.
Yes. And she's been trying to fix it. It's fixed now, hooray!
It's fixed now.
And it's incredibly distracting when she's trying to fix the camera. Oh my gosh. Oh, we have fun around here, y'all.
Yes.
Okay, so I was talking to my son. We were talking about
Energy from a system.
energy and stress. Yeah. And so I was telling him, I said, fasting, and I don't know how you feel about fasting. So y'all feel free to like poke holes in this, but it was the thing that came through intuitively. And I was like, fasting probably does work for some people. But when you think about you have to not have loads of stress going on in other parts of your body, because fasting is a form of stress on our bodies. And so if you're having any type of mental health crisis or disruption or any other like big stressors happening in your life, and then you attempt to fast as a protocol, that probably isn't going to, work and help you lose weight. What he said, he's like, "I found" he's gotten into, like, weightlifting, right? So he's like, "I found that I actually lose more weight and my body changes when I eat more regularly and keep a calorie deficit as opposed to only eating once a day." So I'm not eating any more or less amount of food, but the timing of it and all of that makes a huge difference. And I said, "Yeah." And you think about, you're a senior. This has been a stressful year. We've gone through a whole lot of things as a family. So of course fasting hasn't worked for you because there's all of these other things going on. And how often are we doing that? I know for me, like, to bring it back to this conversation, there's big times in my life. I've always known that I had blood sugar issues. I've always known. My mom taught me really on early on to carry snacks with me and to do, to have food around. But as my stress levels increased or I got busier, I would find myself going through these periods of time of just not being hungry and not eating and forgetting to have meals, or looking up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go, "Why do I feel like I'm about to pass out?" Oh, because I didn't feed myself today. And all of that, like, adds up. Like, that doesn't just like, you don't just fix that in, like, one like, I can't just if you've been doing that chronically for years, just one day of not doing that is not gonna magically fix that whole thing that Jess was just talking about with, like, the hormonal production going on in your body.
Alexis, any comments? Okay.
Like, you guys are just saying, like, so much. I don't wanna add too much fuel to the fire, but I will say this, and maybe I'll preface it with, this is why it's important to find practitioners, um, who are knowledgeable, aware, and are willing to, like, work through these nuances with you so that you have a better understanding about your body. But the little seed that I just kind of want to plant for awareness is like that whole conversation or this whole conversation that we've been talking about so far has really only revolved around 3 hormones, but we have way more than that. And they're not just like the sex hormones. Um, and then, I mean, if you just think about the concept of hormones being messengers and signals, and you just think about generally all the things that your bodies do throughout the day, your heart beats, your muscle contract, your brain works, your nervous system, your breathing, like all of those things, all of them have signals and messengers. All of them have hormonal connections. Um, so we're using kind of coming back full circle to what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation. We're using examples of the things that our culture is focusing on right now, which is like the estrogen, cortisol, the progesterone relationship that we've been discussing. But there's way more. There are common patterns. I work specifically with like recognizing patterns and making those connections. There are common patterns in how hormones like act and don't act. But I think I just want to kind of put that out there, is that we're using these
Mm.
as examples, but I think part of the awareness is that even like in our conversation, in our education, in the media and stuff, we're kind of just focusing on this small like top 5 of hormones. But really and that is a number that I don't keep off the top of my head. Like, liver function, there's over 500. I think it's like 534 functions for the body. Like, I know that one. I think hormones is like 50. I don't even want to go. I don't even want to go there. I think it's like over 50, but I think it's definitely over 50, but I can't remember. But my whole point is, what did you say?
I was just Googling it. Yeah, there's over 50 primary.
Is it like
act-
56 or something?
Yeah, the actual amount exceeds over 200, but there's about 56 primary.
Yes. I wasn't going to get into the two. Why am I watch the video? Why am I whispering into the microphone so they don't hear? I have no idea. I wasn't going to dive into the 200 subdivisions. I was going to stick with the primary. But my whole point for anybody who's listening is that it's not, hormones are more than estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol. Those are the buzzwords that we've been using for like the last 25 years or so. But just know that there's more to it than that. And I'll put it I'll drive it home a little bit more. If you're working with somebody and like your estrogen levels are normal and your progesterone levels are normal and your cortisone levels aren't too bad, don't think that there still can't be a problem with hormones signaling, communication, transport, conversion, all of those things. It's probably one of those other 50 something that nobody's looking into. So I guess that's kind of the point that I wanted to say. Back to you
Yes,
guys.
I love. Yeah, I love that you pulled that, because that is. I was going to say, to some of the examples we've been given, it's very case by case dependent. Everybody's body is unique. Everybody's body has adapted to different things because of each individual person's experience and health and DNA and all of the things. And
Mhm.
so maybe this is where we say the thing of, our podcast is not just the answer. Social media is not just the answer. One perspective is not just the answer. And this is where finding those practitioners, whether it's one of us or someone else who has full integrity to be able to support you, and education and practical experience, this is where you becoming the advocate for you is the utmost important thing, and finding the right person to support you, or people to support you.
Amen.
Okay, so mic drop.
Hmm.
So I want to go back to that pushing through mentality, because a lot of us have been programmed to push through for whatever reason. Each individual has been programmed to push through. So let's kind of um, turn the direction of this. And If you could say one thing to a woman to instead of push through or wait for the hormone tantrum to come, however that tantrum shows up, what is the one thing or couple things that you could say to any woman listening or man, for any or you identify as listening, that pushing through is not the
Mm.
way? What can how can you help every listener understand that pushing through is not the way?
It doesn't have to be this hard. It's as simple as that. If you're waking up in your life every day and there's this underlying feeling of, why does this feel so hard? Or maybe heavy, that's another word that might feel that way, right? And then the next little thought is like, but I just need to. That's your sign. That's your sign to go seek help from someone who is speaking and talking and having the conversation that we're having right now, because it's not supposed to feel that way. We've normalized it feeling that way. And there are people out there that can help you feel differently. And it's so worth it. You can't even imagine how worth it is right now because your body can't feel the other side of it. So if there's any part of you that has that little inkling of, this feels hard or this feels heavy and I don't know what to do about it, go find someone to help you. Come ask us if we can't help you. Like, this is probably one of the biggest reasons why we decided to have this conversation and to do this podcast.
Like, ditto.
I get to watch YouTube.
Yeah, ditto. Like,
Yes.
even like for yeah, like in so many words, like, even for me personally, um, I've been as my business like grows and develops and things like that, worldly pressures can definitely lead one to think about, yeah, like trying to like either push through or keep up. It's two sides of the
Mhm.
same coin. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I agree exactly with what Amber says. Like, for my words, like you guys know that I come from like a faith perspective. Like, I really had to go back to like the yoke is easy and the burden is light. Like, and so like those words like play in my head a lot more consciously these days. Like exactly what Amber said when I'm feeling like there's so many things that I have so much to do and da 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 da. Da. I'm like, wait, the yoke is supposed to be easy and the burden's supposed to be light. And it gives me an opportunity to pause and start looking at what needs to shift, what needs to change. To Amber's point again, like what resources do I need to tap into? What friend do I need to phone?
Yeah.
Like what friend do I need to phone? What resource do I need to tap into to make this burden lighter? And funny story, like circling back into that spectrum of stress and everything, like burden, the concept of
Mm.
burden, there's still work, there's still a responsibility. It's not always like lay on a tropical beach and no worries and nothing. It's not necessarily that. There is a responsibility, there is a job to do. And it is serious and it impacts you and it impacts, the people around you locally, globally. But and how do we make executing that burden and carrying that burden and 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 working with that burden lighter. So all that to say, ditto to I second Amber.
Yeah.
Ditto, ditto. And ditto both of you.
Ditto to infinity.
And we are going to have in the show notes a gift for you, as it's a workbook that's really easy for you to walk through on your own. But what I really want to tap into next are some empowerment focuses and some solutions, because I think we overcomplicate all of this so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that are the simple fixes, I'm not going to say they are easy, but they are simple fixes, are things that you can do free all by yourself.
Yeah.
And they're the simple things. And before I go into what I think they are, I would love to hear your guys' perspective of what is the thing that you started to do that got you to feel back to where you were when, let's say, you didn't have access to healthcare yet. You didn't. I want to make sure this is helpful for everyone, because healthcare is not an easy thing to access at this moment. There, do I want you to see a practitioner? Yes. Would I love for you to come see one of us? Yes. But I understand that's not feasible for everyone right now. And
Mm.
so I want to make sure that we're leaving you today with things that you can take immediate action on and implement on your own, spending zero money. You will be spending effort, but you are not spending money. And these are things you can do for yourself. So before I dive into some of the very simple ones I think of, what are some that come to you that you would love for a woman to hear that were life changing, can be life changing, are really important to bring into their daily routine, their life, whatever that is? Yeah.
Um, Pay attention to how much water you drink. You probably need more.
Well, I was gonna say that too. Dig it.
Huh? Uh-huh. I might catch, so we may have some more dittos coming. Pay attention to how much protein you eat. You probably need more. Um, for me, one of the biggest shifts was simply um paying attention to how often I go to easy carbs when I'm hungry and at my like limit, as opposed to eating protein and getting to a point where I have easy protein options in my fridge to do first, even if I still want a handful of Cheez-Its, right? Like, even if I still want, like, sometimes I'll like one of my current obsessions of like go-tos in the middle of the day is turkey slices with cheese and a pickle. And I roll it up like a roll, like a mm, like a tortilla almost, and eat it. And then sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll go grab like a handful of pretzels or a handful of like Cheez Its or something that still has a little bit of that carby crunchy to it. But that has made a huge difference in how I feel during the day. Instead of, in the past, my go-to would be to go grab the easy carbs, to go, eat rice or go grab a bag of chips. Like, I'll just be completely real. When I've let my blood sugar get too low, carbs has always been my go-to. And for most people, that's we crave like Alexis, talks about like food, food noise, food cravings have a lot. I can't remember. You have a phrase, Alexis,
Mhm.
that you use, but like, um, what we're craving says a lot about what's going on in our bodies, right? So that shift for me has made a huge difference in like my hunger. It's made a huge difference in like just how I feel. It's made a huge difference, and the upping my protein has helped with my the head fog, the brain fog during the day. And then the third one is um
Before you say the third,
yeah.
I just want to tip into why that snack, for anybody who's listening, like that's like legit an adult lunchable right there. And that's a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
Yes.
Let's tap into why that, and we're not carb bashing. I want you to eat carbs. You need carbs. Your body needs carbs. Your brain needs carbs. Carbs are good. But why that that snack is so helpful is one, you've got turkey, which is your protein, which protein is the building block of like an immense amount of processes in our body. And then two, you have cheese, which is a healthy fat. As women, we typically do not eat enough fat, healthy fat. And so you've got your healthy fat, and then pickle, there's a lot of sodium electrolytes, you're dehydrated. There's so many good things to that snack, and that's why you are feeling better. So that is a very simple snack that anybody can do, and it's one as a practitioner, I like to implement. So I love that you are doing that. Okay, number 3, I'm sorry, I had to interrupt just to say why that's such a good snack.
I love it, I love it. Um, and these are all things I enjoy eating. So for that's the other thing I wanna say, like, to caveat with that for you, if you're looking to make a shift in your life in this way, please don't go try to force yourself to eat things that you don't like. Please don't go fill your fridge full of things that literally make you wanna, like, gag when you look at it. I listen, turkey, cheese, and pickles has been something I have been eating in some capacity my entire life. If I have a choice, turkey like, my mom is coming to town next week, and she will inevitably make me a turkey, like, Thanksgiving meal level turkey, because it's one of my favorites. So that's the other thing I would say, like, in alongside that. That wasn't my 3rd thing, but that was the other thing I would, like, say is, like, don't try to force yourself to do something or shift in a way that feels so out of character or feels so hard to do that you're just creating inner resistance instead of helping yourself feel better. Um, the 3rd thing was move your body in some way, whether it's, like, walking, even if it's as simple as, like, 5 minutes after you eat a meal or 5 minutes in between, like, Zoom calls. For me, sometimes it's dancing, like, in between when I'm context switching during the day. I will, like I literally walk around with my phone in my pocket of my leggings, and I turn on music while I'm doing stuff, while I'm shifting between calls or getting a snack or whatever, and just, like, dance and move and, like, play. That I don't have to go do a whole workout to get the benefit of, like, moving my body.
Those are 3 incredibly great ones, and all again, those are very easy to do. You can dance around your house for free. Alexis, what comes up for you?
Mostly ditto. I mean, just to kind of recap, because we said a lot. If anybody needs a quick recap, basically Amber said water, protein, movement is essentially what she said, which I think are excellent. Um, Sometimes it's hard for me to get off of my 30,000-foot view of things. Um, I think if I was gonna add anything to that is kind of what we've always been saying, is never stop asking why, because there is an answer out there, and also, like, look for the practitioners who are willing to answer the question of the why.
Mhm.
Um, I'll say what I was gonna say, but I'll preface it with it's a stepping stone, which is, there is something to be said about like tracking, journaling, a diary to look for commonalities and patterns. A lot of the success that I've achieved with my clients is by finding the patterns that are going on in their body, whether they're patterns of compensation, patterns of like less than optimal function, just patterns. And sometimes you don't see the patterns if you're not like writing them down. So like I have a client who she would text me her like list of symptoms, and that's one of my specialties, looking at symptoms together instead of in isolation. But the number one thing that I started doing before or as I was looking at the symptoms together is I started writing down and taking note of the dates that she was texting me. And so I started noticing that they were happening like around every 30 days. And I know like our menstrual cycle is the number one cycle that people know happens on 28 to 30 days. But a lot of our body systems, a lot of our chemical processes, other hormones run on either a daily cycle, a 30-day cycle, or a little bit more of like a quarterly, seasonally cycle. So, um, date stamping and starting to take note of when she was messaging me gave me an extra little bit of information to start narrowing down what organ and what system needed help. And now the reason that I hesitate at saying that is because I completely can understand and appreciate how if somebody were to listen to this and start like doing that tracking, they're like, okay, I have all of this information. I don't see the pattern. I don't know what to do. And I don't necessarily want that to turn into a spiral either. But I will say that there is power if you're blessed enough to find that practitioner, there's definitely power and there's definitely an advantage to saying like if anybody wanted to reach out to me and said, hey, I wrote these things down for the last 4 weeks, like that's a gold mine for me. Just the fact that I have that information to kind of look at. So maybe that's just the last thing is that our bodies work both in optimized function and non-optimized like dysfunction. They still work in patterns. And even if you don't know what the pattern is, sometimes it's just a stepping stone to note that every time I have to go to the grocery store, blah, blah, blah happens. Or every time we come back from a trip, I'm down and out for a whole week. Or why do I get sick every time we come back from a trip? You know, like things like that can definitely be a an extra little glimpse into like your solution. Water, protein, movement, and maybe like look for some patterns.
Mhm.
And I think there's something that is gold in there before I say my, because again, ditto, is that you have to have enough time to know what's going on in your body. And we are in an era of quick fixes, and our body is not a quick fix. Patterns take a minute to come through, and you have spent 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 years pushing through your body's signals. Your body no longer feels safe when you start to give it attention. And so you have to give your body time. And that could look like a few months. That could look like a year. That could look like a couple years, depending on how you have treated your body up until this point. So we got a lot of head shaking right now. So if you are going and you're starting something and someone's got a program that's like, get better in 3 weeks or, something, that is a red flag. Yes, we can do a lot of things. We can create awareness in 3 weeks. We cannot create systemic change in 3 weeks.
Relief and lasting relief are two different things.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
mhm.
And so the fifth I'm going to add to this. So maybe that's the fifth. So we've got water, protein, movement, tracking, patience. It's a shitty one, I know. Patience.
Yes.
The sixth is breathing. We do not breathe as women deeply. And again, men, I'm sure this applies to you too, but I'm a woman. I can speak from the women's perspective. This is mainly a women topic in this moment. And so I'm not leaving you out. I hear you. You're here too. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Um, Breathing is massive. And do you need to do all this fancy breath work? No. I'm someone who is very pro take as deep a breath in as you can, take a long exhale as you can, set a timer for 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and just breathe. Everybody's like that 4, 7, 8. I'm like, I don't remember which number I did. And then I get all like mad at myself because I'm like, I can't do it. I don't remember the number and I got lost and my neurodivergence is all over the place and I'm squirrels and everything else. I can't do all that. Even box breathing, sometimes I'm like, wait, which one am I supposed to do? And then I freak out when I like hold my exhale, like that freaks out my nervous system. And so like and that's a pattern. That is a signal. That is a sign that I am working on for you all that just heard that. Yes, that is a sign that my nervous system needs love. My nervous system needs a lot of love. Your nervous system also needs a lot of love. I promise you. And so just breathe in for as long as you can and breathe out for as long as you can. And that's all you got to do for 2 minutes. So, as that recap, water, if you can shoot for 100 ounces, that's great. If you get to 60 ounces, that's really good. If you get over 100, bravo, good for you. Again, 100 is a really good spectrum for a lot of things. You can get to 100 ounces of protein a day, amazing. If you get to 75, I'm proud of you. If you get over 100, damn, good job. You got this. Movement, that can look like anything. 5 minutes of movement, dancing around your house, walking. You don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to start weightlifting. Do I want you to weightlift at some point? Yes. But that doesn't mean you have to do it now. Tracking. Track, just write things down. You don't have to know what you're tracking. Just write things down and give that to someone. Anytime as a practitioner, we get a journal of things, we're like, yay, thank you so much. It is like the best present you can give a practitioner who is a really good practitioner is here's a journal of all of my things. And we're like, thank you for the gold mine. I am ready to go. Patience with yourself. This takes time. And then breathing. And then in addition, if you are like a hyperachiever like me, where you're like, I want more information, I want more things, I want all the things. In the show notes, there is a link to a free gift for you, which is a very simple workbook. There's a little like quiz in front, and it will give you, based on your answers, it will give you some steps and tips and strategies for you to start to implement. And that is a gift from us to you to just start you on the process because I know it's not an easy thing to start working with people. It is hard to trust working with people in this day and age. And we are here to support you in any way that we can. And before we fully wrap up, what is one thing that you want the listener to take away from today? Alexis.
Don't shoot the messenger.
That's good.
Stop shooting the messenger. Estrogen is not the enemy.
Yeah.
Cortisone is not the culprit. I'm trying to think of one for progesterone. Hold on. Progesterone is not the perpetrator. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. You
That
guys,
was so good.
you get the gist.
So good.
Thanks. Love you guys. Can you tell I love a
Y'all,
good pattern?
I love that.
you want to make friends? Y'all go start a podcast with people, okay? Just go do things with people that you love. No. I mean, yes, but the thing I want you to hear is with love, stop making this so fucking hard. Allow yourself, like, don't create more friction than there needs to be when we're trying to create a new habit.
Girl, that's a big fat juicy ditto. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
That's an episode.
Yeah.
That's a
And let me
bar.
give you I know, it really is. So let me give you one really simple example of this if your brain was just like, shut off. I'm not ready to hear what Amber has to say, okay? To keep my water intake up, I live with a water bottle attached to me. I get really pretty water bottles that make me really happy. I have to have a handle and I have to have a straw. If I don't have those two things, I will not get in my water intake. One of my friends actually calls my water bottle my emotional support water bottle because it literally goes everywhere with me. The straw is the most crucial part of the equation. If I have a bottle that does not have a straw, I will not drink my water. My husband has rolled his eyes at me about this particular thing for years. He recently got another this bottle is new, but he got another version of this that actually has a straw. And do you know what he did? He comes home the other day and says, "You're right," which is not something that happens often. He said, "Babe, I you are so right. I am drinking more water because I have this straw on my water bottle now. I've noticed that I'm drinking more water." I was like, "See?" But, like, I know that about myself. It's something I realized a long time ago, and I just never force myself to attempt to drink water out of anything else that doesn't have a straw. I make it really easy to get my water in. So that's what I mean. Stop making it so dang hard. I
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah. And ditto. And I have to point out because not everybody is the same. And yes, I also a waffle, but a straw doesn't work for me because I can't get enough water. And
Right.
so I
Perfect.
need wide mouth cup. I need it like this. I need to be able to chug it.
Yep.
And I don't chug water, I'm not going to drink it. And I can't have it be cold. I can't have it be hot. I want it temperature in the middle. Like we
Yeah.
embrace whatever your thing is that is unique to you. That is your thing. Dive into that. Don't shame yourself for it. Don't compare yourself to other people. Be like, I love my water. I need a straw for my water. It is just fact. It is nothing other than that. And
Right.
listen to that. And then I'm rough with a little bit of, we got a Jessica Fye swap, like give a little mushy at the end. And one big thing that there's a few big things in this, but your hormones are an invitation.
Mm,
They're an invitation to look in. They're an invitation to care for yourself the way you care for your loved ones. They're an invitation to treat yourself with everything that you truly deserve, whether you believe it or not. I promise you, you deserve it. They are not an invitation to go into chaos. They are not a loss of control. They are not telling you you're broken. They are inviting you to come into partnership with your body, maybe for the first time ever. Your body is beautifully wise. Listen, respect, tap in, and get in tune with your body because it is the most knowledgeable thing on the planet. And that intuition that comes from your body is a gift. These messengers are a gift. Everything is an invitation for you to be who you need to be for you, so you can be who you need to be for them.
mm.
That is a wrap on this episode of A Wellness Unscripted. If you felt seen, understood, or empowered, send this to the person who needs it most. Hit subscribe so you are here for every unscripted moment. Watch us on YouTube so you can see every crazy thing that we do. We will be back soon with more truth, more depth, and more whole person wellness. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely day.